Hello, thank you for joining us again for what is technically the second episode of our new slot car related podcast, but is the first one to be done under our new title, which is Talking Utter Slot. So today, me, Scott, and
me, Pedro,
are going to be discussing our favourite cars from the past year, that year being 2022. And obviously, we're going to have to list our top three, our favourite one. We'll probably talk about some honourable mentions, maybe the best brand if we feel one warrants it. But we're also going to have, probably most contentiously, our most disappointing car. Now, we're going to have some rules about how we do that. Pedro, do you want to run through what you see as the criteria?
See, now you've done this to me. The criteria, we had a disagreement about the criteria, and I'm working on the criteria of it had to be a new mold for 2022. We didn't necessarily have to buy it ourselves. I think the end result for me will be cars that I have bought, but I want to mention a couple that I haven't bought. Mostly, I think they're cars I haven't bought yet. I will get round to, but yeah, the gist I think was you wanted, I think, cars that we had bought, and I said, well, that restricts it too much because I haven't bought as many as you.
Well, this is true. I think in the course of looking at this and scrolling through my orders from various well-known slot car suppliers, principally Pendle, and also eBay and swap meets, I had a very good year. I stopped counting when I got to over 50. Now, most of those were second-hand swap meet. Some of them cost as little as £7. Some of them cost a bit more than that. So
that's the sound of a man justifying his purchase.
It's not quite the addiction it sounds. However, so I was quite glad in a way that you wanted to restrict it because it made the choice easier. And what I've ended up with, being very strict about if it's just the ones that were brand new, just the ones that were brand new, I got to about 15. With your strict application of a new mold rule, I got down to 8, which makes it easier. So I don't know it would change the result, but it certainly makes it easiher. So
you're welcome to go off piste with that, I think.
Okay. Well, we'll see how we get to. Yeah. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to have a top three and therefore a favourite car each, obviously. We'll have some honourable mentions. We'll have the brand, and as I said, the most disappointing. So, Pedro, kick off. Tell us in reverse order what your favourite cars of the year were.
Oh God, no! Now you're throwing a complete curveball. Reverse order. I was going to just blather on about a couple and then decide when you said make a decision. Anyhow, the one in my hand that I'm waving badly for the benefit of the tape to the camera for Scott so that he can see it and you can't. I encourage you to go to Pendle and take a look for yourselves. The Scalextrics PAF Motorsport 911 GT3 992, is it? I don't know all the different designations that Porsche use. But I thought this car was absolutely beautiful, and I still do. Looking at it now, I still think it's perfection. From the wafer-thin windscreen wiper that I just noticed, to the stunning paint job. The paint job is one that I contemplated several times buying from decaldoc.de, to put on a Scale Auto 911. 991, 992, GT3, whatever it is. But I chickened out because it looked really complicated and I just didn't think I'd be able to get the decals to fold over the curves. Turns out on that side of things that Simon, the brand guy from Hornby, who rocked up at driver number 8's from Slot Forum, driver number 8's club, Fareham, Farnham, Farnborough, something like that, Felton.
Farnborough, yeah.
Farnborough, you know. So Simon turned up with some pre-production samples, another one which will appear on my list later. And I was just blown away with it then, and I'm still blown away with it now. And it turns out that they have put this fancy tartan effect is one single decal that is just somehow laid on the car. And I think it's amazing. The only place it looks slightly iffy is over the grills on the front wings. The rest of it, I think, is beautiful. I will say, as is Scalextric's way, it was way too shiny to begin with. So my one, I have gone over the black bits with just matte black, or some of the black bits that should be matte black. And I've painted up the driver figure, and the interior is mostly white, whereas I think as it came, it was mostly black, which the shells are fantastically good models. And then they let themselves down with things like the running gear, which we mention another time, I'm sure, is just dire. And the internal details can be pretty rough, although their driver figure, I would say now, their driver helmet is one of the best on the market.
I'm going to leap to the defense of Scalextric there on the running gear. I agree with you. I think it's a beautiful model. I think it looks great. I think the great thing about Scalextric, and in doing my list, I worked out that I'd bought as many Scalextric cars as everything else together, which tells you something about the number of cars they release and how I guess fond I am. Every single one of them ran perfectly out of the box. So take it out of the box, take the magnet off, put it on the track, and it was smooth, ran beautifully.
Yeah.
So I think the running gear, I think, is...
Sorry, what is your track? What brand?
Polycar.
Okay. Running?
So,
no.
Yeah. See, I'm old enough, as are you, but you might not admit it, to remember the days when, buying a Fly or an SCX car particularly, you probably had to buy 10 to get one that had axles which were straight and wheels which weren't wobbly and all that sort of stuff. So I think I'm still sufficiently delighted when I pull a car out of a box and you put it on the track and it runs smoothly. And I think this Porsche that you've just talked about, I've got one as well, and it's just a joy to slide around. Now, is it super fast? Are the tyres super grippy? No. Does it feel nice to do lap after lap, driving it around and drifting in the corners? Yes. So I guess that comes down to, are you racing it, or can I use the playing word? Playing with it. I tend to play them.
Race them, but they do need a bit of work before they're... I mean, we do have a class that is Scalextric inlines at the club, and you can race them. I haven't yet to make this one successfully go round one particular corner, and I'm just messing with the up front axle, and I think there's just... I think I'm going to put more movement in there, but out of the box, I find them very disappointing. As soon as you take that magnet out, I find them disappointing. You do need to do things, and I've done a fair bit, but we don't change too much of the underpinnings. But you can change the tyres. They're Euro standard tyres. You can put slotters on them.
Yeah, well, I think this is definitely a subject for future podcasts. It's about the expectations of when you take something out of the box and what you may need, as some people say, to do. Anyway, that's just one car.
One car.
Keep going. What's next?
Still me. Well, I'm going to stick with Scalextric, as some people call it, because for me, and this is a real contender for car of the year, because I was delighted that they produced the Jaguar XJS. Superb machine. Again, beautiful model. Not quite a wafer thin wiper blade on this one for some reason. Lovely BBS alloys. I think they're BBS alloys. Very nice, lovely car. Probably, I assume, quite an accurate model because it's quite narrow and a bit tippy, and not a stunning performer at all. But I just love the fact it exists, and I will, when they produce more, I will buy more because I'm quite a Jag fan. Okay, well, this is interesting because in my researches, I think that came out in 2021. Oh no, did it? Oh my God. All right, put that back in the box. I apologise. You did
I agree with you. It's a great model. I resisted buying. I'm delighted that they were available, but I resisted buying the imported Australia only green livery because I felt sure that they would do that domestically. Yeah. And sure enough, that was announced, and that's one of the ones which is on pre-order. But I think it won't arrive safely till 2020. So sorry, by your own strict definition, invalid. Hoisted by my own petard. Okay, so let me wave this one in front of you, which I think we're going to discuss at length. Maybe not. Let's keep it brief. Bastos Camaro. What a piece of plastic this is. Awesome. I love it to bits. It's not a particularly good performer in my hands. Again, no, I haven't done an awful lot with it, like the Jag, but I just love the fact that it exists.
and I'm staring down the barrel of the thing, looking straight at it, and it's got that yank tank silliness about it that I love. Driver figure, I didn't have to paint the driver figure. He already came nicely painted. Whereas on the FAF Motorsport one, I don't think that I've painted up the driver helmet on that one. Whereas this guy, he came ready, prepared for racing, which is one of the inconsistencies, I think, of Scalextrics. Love it to bits, but obviously the elephant in the room, which is no longer an elephant because I'll mention it, is I don't believe it's the right colour red.
I think that's something we can vigorously agree on.
Mostly because of the podcast,
mostly because it's not actually red, but that's
it's burgundy or something.
As you say, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think it's great that they're doing it. I think the detailing. I think that what was interesting to me is that it's a different, and this is a great sign of where Scalextrics are. I think today is it's not just a relivery of the old Trans Am Camaro. It's a completely new mold, so it's the right shape for the car that it was, different wheels, etc. Slightly bemused that it's different wheels to the aforementioned XGS. I would have thought they would have been the same, because I had a quick go at kind of playing with swapping those around. But I think it's great. But I ordered one the minute I heard it was coming. I was delighted when it arrived. I think it runs great, but it's the wrong colour in my mind. And I've looked at lots of pictures, including the replicas and things. And I know Simon said that it was they looked at references, and I'm sure they did. I think
Simon said that they went and they actually got some kind of digital sample off of the. I think they sampled an existing car, whether it's the original, I don't know, but there is a car running. It was at Goodwood this year, I believe, in this livery, and I think they sampled it. He was
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did, and I think sample is a key word in this because Dave Kennedy over in America, who was given one of the Scalextric samples, which he's still got, and when he puts it side by side with the production car, the sample is red, the right colour, whereas the production car is this sort of maroon.
Is it?
And my amateur sleuthing hunch is that somewhere betwixt the UK and China, I guess, where it was produced, or somebody said, yeah, that's right, use that. But at the same time, I think they were making the Charger, the Miss Levi Charger, which is a sort of similar maroon colour. And as I say, complete guesswork here. My guess is that the factory used the same colour on both, when in fact it should have been. So based on what Dave Kennedy's got, the sample that the factory were given is right. They obviously said, yeah, that's good, make that. And then what was made was different. Does it really matter?
Yes.
That's an interesting debate. That's an interesting, isn't it? I think every time you pull it out of the box. Yeah. So I think not to go, and it qualifies as my most disappointing car because I really keenly anticipated it. And that one thing just kind of spoils the omelette, doesn't it? And my fear then is because one of my most anticipated cars coming up is the similarly sponsored TWR Rover, which is very dear to my heart since I worked there at the time. And so I'm hoping it comes in red, but time will tell.
It'll be rocket red, that one. I'll probably still want one of those when it does surface, but I will be severely disappointed if it is the wrong colour. Again, with this one, I've gone over some of the black bits at the front and just sort of dulled them down because Scalextrics do a very glossy finish on their cars. It's slight digression. I don't understand your comment about the wheels. Mine has got the same wheels as the XJS.
Wow. Well, not quite exactly the same size.
Oh, really? Oh my God. Okay. And I believe, I've certainly some of the pictures that I looked up when I started getting irate about the colour red, I've not seen it running on those kind of BBS alloys. I don't think. It was running on something else most of the time, the pictures that I saw. Maybe in period, don't know. How about you do one?
Okay, well, if I may, I shall run through my honourable mentions and I'll do a top three.
Oh, so you a different format to me. Go on.
A different format. I'm just trying to be more conventional in these things. So I think honourable mentions, the SCX Hyundai WRC. Why? Because I like rally cars, I like SCX rally cars, and it's lovely to see SCX back making new cars. So to be celebrated on lots of reasons. The great thing about those cars is they're all pretty much the same. Now, some might say they're terrible and you can't race them, and also overlooking the fact that you put them on the track, they all drive much the same as all the others, and you can have a great time competing rally car against rally car. Lots of detail, very nice livery, good shape, perfect SCX, love it. Other honourable mention, and this is kind of cheating really, partly because I couldn't quite get it into my top three. The Scalextric Lotus 97, 98, 99, the new Senna Formula One cars. Well, I've got the GPS one and I've got the Camel one. I'm hoping to pick up the one that's in the set. In fact, what I'm really hoping is that Scalextric will do the non-Senna cars, so Johnny Dumfries and Elio De Angelis, because, shocker, I'm not that big a Senna fan. I mean, I get it, but I'm not that big a Senna fan. So I think those cars are great in and of themselves. I think they're not necessarily, they're not perfect. We could nitpick on some stuff, but to do those cars and to do to make three different cars effectively, that could in the past have been the same moulding with a different livery on it, I think is highly commendable. So great.
I'm not 100% for that. Those have passed me by because all the images I saw of them made me think, they just look a bit toy-like and a bit soft. And I can't remember really I can remember seeing videos of Senna charging around some Portuguese track in, I assume, one of those cars. But so they're quite good models, are they? They're quite accurate.
The issue with them is the driver helmet, and the driver helmet is a modern helmet in what should be an 80s car.
Yeah.
And I think, Slotted have just released a new Porsche Group C, the Newman livery with I think the Senna helmet painted inside the model. There's probably a lucrative side market in painted slotted Senna helmets to be transplanted onto Scalextric Lotus, but we'll see.
I don't know.
So and that's probably a good point. I think Scalextrics are my brand of the year. As I say, most of the cars I got were Scalextrics. They all worked great. I think they're doing interesting stuff for me as an old git, and I'm sure hopefully they're doing well with the stuff that appeals to the kids as well. So I think they just,
I hope they're swapping those insane Blues Brothers things in container loads in order that they can make Bastos and SD1 cars for the life of you and I. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a measure of how. I think to mention, I haven't put it on my list, but the Blues Brothers car, the Mr. Bean car, the other.
I cringe at the sight of them, and then I tell myself, but if they sell those, they stay in business and they can produce something that you will.
Well, it depends. I mean, I instantly bought the Batmobile, and I bought the long time ago now the Starsky and Hutch car. So I think if it's a car that appeals to you, great. What we'll end up doing, of course, is paying way over the odds for them in 10 years' time when we realise what a classic they were.
You will.
Anyway, into my top three. Drum roll, please. Third is the SRC Toyota LMP1 TS050. The Le Mans
I've yet to see, I think. I'm sure it was at Gaydon, but I just doesn't appeal. Those modern LMPs, yeah.
Well, obviously, I worked at Toyota for some time, so the car was has a relevance to me. We also contacted and worked with SRC to follow the production of this car. We did a story about it. It was a long time in production. They spent a long time doing what they do, and they're a very small company. And I think they had a particular challenge getting that livery onto that body because the complexity of the shape, lots of a million tiny little sponsor detail. And I think they were done by hand in the end, basically. I'm not sure about that. But when it eventually arrived, and it's ridiculously expensive, and the only reason it's third is I'm too frightened almost to use it. So it comes out of its box, I give it a quick run round, then it goes back in its box, because I'm not racing at a club or anything, but it's a lovely, lovely thing, and I kind of admire them for their dedication to doing what they did.
Is it quite an intricate kind of body made up of lots of bits that are heat welded?
yeah, it's. I mean, if you're online, go and sort of Google the SRC Toyota, and there's loads of CAD images and stuff which really show you the detail that they put into the body. Is it strictly speaking accurate dimensionally? No, but no slot car is, but it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So second, dun dun dun, drum roll, Scalextric's Porsche 911 GT3, faff. It would. I think, like you said, all this, it looks lovely. It's a great car. I love that category of racing. When I'm playing on Gran Turismo, I do endless liveries on that body. So I was delighted when it came out. I'm sure they'll do other liveries on this molding, and we'll get those as well. But I think this was a great one to start with, and I see it appeals to motorsport fans and kind of people who are just casually buying something off the shelf as well. And as I said before, it runs beautifully. Very happy with it. It gets pulled off the plinth and run fairly regularly. So well done, Scalextrics. But number one, the Polycar BRM P160. Now, yeah, go wild. So it's 70s Formula One cars. Polycar have been doing a few for a while. This. Those of us who've been, into Scalextrics a long time will remember the actually fairly accurate for its time and cost. The old one, which I've got one which I painted and reliveried and did it as best I can. Which, when you put it on new tyres, don't mention it too widely, laps my Polycar track nearly as fast as the actual Polycar car.
Wow.
So you don't need to spend all that money, but the detail is incredible. Everything is beautiful. It runs beautifully. It's one flaw, and I'm not that fussed about it yet, is that because of the way I think the nose is so narrow and the wiring goes in, the front axle sits very slightly above the track, and the front wheels don't necessarily turn. Now, I know some folk have kind of taken it apart and modified things to sort that, and I can see why that would be an attractive proposition, but this thing is so detailed and so intricate in bits that I think pulling it apart for the psychological knowledge that the front wheels, which, let's face it, don't do anything much on a slot car anyway, touch the track. But it's a beautiful thing, and I love they're doing these kind of, I want to say obscure, that's wrong, and this period of car. One worth mentioning, had we been allowed re-liveries, the Scalextrics Tyrrell P34, which I had resisted up until the one that was released this year with a slightly softer motor and the blue and white livery rather than the all blue one. I think that's a great car. Again, very detailed, runs beautifully, isn't as quick as the Polycar. Again, that's probably down to the tyres. But it would probably have been in contention for that number one. So there you go. My car of the year, Polycar BRM P160.
I would say that's a really strong contender. I haven't purchased one yet. I'm waiting for the Marlboro liveried one that hopefully will be out by the spring. I think I've seen several of them at Gaydon. Chap at the club's got one, and they are very, very pretty, as are all those F1s. Maurizio deserves some kind of award himself just for the mere fact that he knocks those out, and he knocks out stuff like the DTMs that I adore, and all those Group Cs that he's done. He's done us proud, and that BRM is a very nice car. Yeah, I agree. I had, as a possible candidate, the Peterson 72, which is I think the iconic shape of the 72, not that first one that Maurizio did, but the 74 car is just beautiful, I think, and it's just a running version of my Dinky Toy, which was one of my favorite Dinky Toys when I was a wee child, which I believe I still have in the loft somewhere. I've got a lot of stuff in the loft. I think it's still up in the loft, and that was going to be a possible contender. I have one here that I can wave at the camera, but I'm not taking it out of the box because I see that as some kind of pension investment. Except again, because they have sold out at Pendle, so what do I know about buying for profit?
Well, this again, interesting. I bought one of those and I instantly took it out of the box, and it runs very well. The only reason I didn't include it was because it's strictly speaking not a completely new moulding. I think the only thing that's new is the airbox and the rear wing.
I would have allowed that under my rules.
Okay, that's good. That's your rules. That's fine. But yeah, okay. But I think, I mean, again, it emphasises how great. And I know there's some people talking about the toy manufacturers or the categorization of serious manufacturers, or SRC, NRS. NSR, Slotted, Polistil. I think you make a really good point. The Slotted, Polistil make mass-produced cars which you can take out the box and run very, very well, and are produced to a fantastic detail. And in a competition where you know, do they look good and do they run well, they would probably beat Scalextric hands down. But I think, as we mentioned before, I think the sheer diversity that Scalextric do, because they're trying to do something different to slot it, I think is where that works to mention. So which is your top car then?
Okay, you're going to force me into. So, I don't know. Still, we've had a few days to prepare for this, and right now I'm looking at another Slotted, the DTM C-Class that just came out tail end of the year, which I think is simply beautiful. And to me, the C-Class and the Alpha, they are DTM at their absolute best. 95, 96 was it, somewhere around that. Absolute peachy cars. And this model is beautiful. It's so detailed. I don't like the fact that it's got a really chrome exhaust, but that's the only thing. Oh, no, it isn't. I don't like the fact that the interior is solidly yellow, because I believe the parcel shelf should be black, but I'm quibbling. Yeah, that's a beautiful car, and I love that to bits. I've already broken off one wing mirror. I haven't made it go as fast as an Alpha yet, but I will get there, I am sure. But another one, and then I'll make a decision. And I don't know, you're going to probably go, that was not this year. Revo slot, the 333333. In the Momo livery. I absolutely adore the look of this car. I don't like Ferraris, but I've always liked the 333333. And I had a couple of the SCX ones, which were pretty poor, and I painted one up in Momo colours. I've seen the Mr. Slot car, always going to be Mr. Slot car for me, version at Gaydon, and I think that's a very nice looking model, but I probably won't buy one of those because I just got a downer on him at the moment. But this is, I think, a beautiful model. I love the fact that the rear wing is magnetized and just falls off rather than snaps off. I love the driver detail. I love the finish. That could be, if you're going to make me push, I could actually say that would be my best, but I won't, because you said something earlier about the motorsport being a brilliant category. GT3 is, I think, a brilliant category. And I would have to give my bestest to Sideways. And I don't know whether it's the Conti Bentley or the 720. Neither of which I've got kits, and neither of which I've yet finished. And I don't know if a kit technically counts. I mean, it is a release, but it's not a finished car. But I'm going to, just for the mere fact it exists and that I've looked at the bits and sort of dry assembled them several times and I'm in love with it, I'm actually going to say the Bentley Continental from Sideways is my pick of the year.
Wow.
With the runner-up being the Slotted C-Class and then the Ferrari from Riva Slot. Oh my God, but that's forgetting the I can't decide, basically.
All right, well, that's pretty good. It's sort of the point of these lists. I can let you off the hook on you don't like Ferraris, but you love the 33333, because it's actually a Dallara, because Dallara designed it and built it. It's got the Ferrari engine in it, so you can you can let yourself love it from unreservedly. What would you be then? So most disappointing car, I think already established. We're fairly certain. Is that going to be the Camaro, the Bastos Camaro? Is that the one for both of us? Is that the point of agreement? Of the disappointments that I have purchased, yes, the Bastos. It's been close to my best favourite car, and it has been the most disappointing. It has been the most disappointing. He stops and thinks about it, and it has been the most disappointing. That's just down to the paint.
Ridiculous, but there you go.
And which, if I had to push you for a best manufacturer, which would you go for?
Well, I think pretty much Sideways, because they have just nailed GT3, and I love GT3. And they're not doing the obvious choices. I mean, I wish they'd do it. Having said I hate Ferrari, I wish they would do a Ferrari, but they're not going to, because obviously they don't want to get sued. I can't afford a license. But the fact they've done that Lexus, the fact they've done that Bentley, I think they're going to do the M4. I don't like it, but I might buy one. I think they cater, they run well, they're different shapes, Sideways for me.
Okay, that's good. Excellent. So to round up then, so if we had to have a shootout, so between my BRM and your Sideways Bentley, which would you think would win?
Oh, that's a toughie though, because they're two very different beasts. Although I loved the Revson Yardley car at the time, I am that old, I would probably go with the Sideways. Not, I know this is a ridiculous argument. That livery is great on the BRM, but it's not one that I think is fantastic. At the moment, I don't have a livery on my Bentley Continental, so that's not a fair thing to say, but I would go with the Bentley.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take a leaf out of real motorsport, and I'm going to strictly apply the rules.
There we go.
And the fact that you haven't actually built the Bentley yet, I think it's going to have to count against it. So I'm declaring the Polycar BRM as the talking utter slot car of the year.
Well, we will have a fight off screen. I don't fully disapprove, and it's a crack. Okay. It is a crack.
Well, if we were really established and we had web pages where people could leave comments, at this point I would be going, please let us know what you think. And actually, please let us know what you think. Put it in the comments and tell us how wrong you think Pedro is. But we won't do that just yet. So to wrap up.
Well, before we wrap up, am I allowed to moan about two cars?
Yes.
One that was actually both of them I was sort of anticipated, One of them I didn't anticipate as much, but Avant Slot 635, the Spirit reissue, disappointing, very disappointing, very expensive for what you get, and what you get is disappointing. And I wanted to want that car. Like, I've got one of the original Spirits, which I put on a 3D chassis, and I wanted to, when they announced they were doing it again, I just thought yes. But no, that's disappointing.
Disappointing because of the running gear?
Running gear, cost, I suppose the reality of knowing that the mould is, I think it's about 128, isn't it? It's a bit of a big beastie. I'm not sure about the facts on that. I have a lot of hope that Simon from Scalextrics knows that he loves the 635. I don't like BMWs, but the 635 is a beast. And how many paint jobs are there on that one? Some classic stuff.
There are some classics. That would be it'd be a good choice. Well, I like you. I've got a Spirit one, which I like. And like most Spirits, early Spirits, it doesn't necessarily run as well as you'd like. But and I know what you mean about the Avant Slot. I've got several Mantas, which I had to have, but they're very fast. But some of them, the meshing can be approximate at best, so there's a lot of noise and probably grinding going on. But what's your other? You have another disappointment you wish to share with us, I believe.
I do indeed. I'm not a big fan of this car in the 1-to-1, but I get why some people are, and I did contemplate it as my first dipping of the toe into the world of Thunderslot.
Ooh.
350 Shelby, blah 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 blah. What a disappointment that is to me. It's fine if you're a speed craze moron, but no, it doesn't look right. I saw on Slot Forum someone described the headlights as looking like dead fish eyes, which I think is quite accurate. And the rear lenses don't look like anything. Disappointing proportions, but I believe Thunderslot are known for slotification, rather like their vaguely connected NSR Italian contemporaries. So I was really disappointed in that one, and I ended up being smitten when I finally got my hands on one with the Surtees Lola, so I went with that instead. And they are a joy to run. Why do they have to have different screw types? Torques? What? No, come on. But that Mustang, no. I know a lot of people like it, but it's horrible. There, said it.
I think it's a good example. So I haven't got one, the new Scalextrics Mustang.
Yeah. Not out yet, is it?
I think it's imminent, isn't it? I think it's sort of in a shipping container somewhere or in the post. But I'm not a huge Mustang fan, but I would buy that before I'd buy the Thunderslot, because I think the Scalextrics one looks better, and I'm sure it'll run well enough. If I was a club racer and I wanted to race something out of the box, then I'd probably buy them. And I think this is one of the great kind of sub-factions within the great church of slot about what works. I'm reminded of years ago on a work thing, there was 3 of us sitting talking. One guy collected original Scalextric stuff still in its box, and he had still wrapped in the paper 6 Formula Junior cars that were still in Triang or whatever it was, shipping paper, and he didn't want to cut into it because it was so precious as it was. The other guy used to build his own brass chassis and wind his own motors and go racing a million miles an hour on tracks. And it was me who just loved playing with toy cars that had motors in them. And so the 3 of us had the same hobby, but we were unable to understand each other entirely. And but I think it's it's one of the great things. But it seems to kind of it divides the slot internet. Everybody. I kind of, and again, hopefully we'll talk about it in the future. This notion where I bought this car, but I bought a new motor and new tires for it. Why? Don't buy the motor and tires when you buy the car. Buy the car and run it first and find out whether it needs a new motor and tires. But
it's a mindset.
It's a mindset, and it's a cute. But I think it just makes an already expensive hobby more expensive. But then,
but if you're of the mindset and you're prepared to do it, then you're prepared to do it. But
anyway, that's for the future.
Yeah, we're running out of time. I want to say very quickly 2 things. Carrera 300 SEL. It just made it into this year. I think that's a fabulous car as well. And although we didn't say anything about it as accessory. And the Aventslot 308. I like the fact that exists, but I don't like Aventslot. There, I'm done.
Okay, that's jolly good. Hopefully people can pick out of that something. But yeah, definitely go and have a look at the Polycar and the Revo Slot Bentley. Thank you for that. Thank you for listening. If you have got this far, we're going to get better at this. Certainly.
No promises.
No promises. Okay. So I'll say goodbye until the next time. Thank you for listening.
Cheerio.